All right, looks like we're live, folks. Do a little adjustment here. There we go. That thing even looks weird when it's kind of, I don't have it just pointed just right. It gets uneven at the bottom of the screen. Still a little crooked, but that's all right. So welcome everybody live. A few people checking in already, or at least giving the I don't know. I don't know if they're giving a thumbs up, but I guess I get to see different people out there. Fo Smith, what's happening? What's going on? So we're just going to kind of chill out here for a little bit, and we'll get rolling. Jay Black, what's happening? What's the verdict of that rear triangle, Jay Black? And welcome, Grand Dog guest. This is Sokka. So Sokka wants to play. Picked 15 minutes ago, decided to play, and now and now it's on my mouse hand. So Fo Smith, another nice March day. Oh man, it's cold today. I just took off my vest. So cold and a little rainy today. Kind of weird. Daniel Lemon's in the house. What's happening, Daniel? I'm a little stuffy, if you guys can tell. Came down with a cold Sunday, so it's been going around. I've had a few people at work have had this little head cold, and one of my kiddos had it. So looks like I'm stuck in it for the next week or so. So we'll see what happens. Alrighty, let's see. We're one. Yeah, Jason Hennessy, what's up? I responded to your message, Jason. There are a few cacti out at Steed. Luckily, I've not hit any lately, but there is one particular I know sticking straight out in the trail right towards the end, right before the rock slab, right before the downhill in front of that. So but we'll get that knocked out this week. Other than that, if you're on the edge of the trail, there's a possibility. You definitely don't fall on the edge because there's cactus all over. So there's only so much that you can knock back because it's everywhere. I don't pay that much attention to it, honestly, until I land in it. So, all right, 2:30 in. Let's. I'm gonna go ahead and give the lineup. I tossed out a question on Tour de Dare, my page, and just ask for topics that you guys would like, and I have a lot of viewer input. And so I've kind of got the whole list, and I'm going to attempt to get through it. And if we start to run along or I get long-winded, which I can't imagine that would happen, but it might. If it does, then I'll just hold off on maybe the last topic or two, and I'll hold those over until next week and cover them on next week's edition. So that's some great questions. Definitely some things that I talk about individually to people a lot. And questions that come up, especially with new riders, even somewhat experienced riders as they're moving up through the categories and having to learn how to do things differently for the level that they're racing. So, the lineup today: weather, Steed update, all the same thing. Choosing bikes. So that was a question that I got tossed out by Ryan Ellis, who I rode with this weekend. And it was like, how do you decide what bike you want? Full squish, hardtail. And then, of course, he threw in the single speed as well, too. And then basically just asked me why single speed. And so I'm going to separate single speed from the full suspension versus hardtail type thing and deal with that separately. And then I'm going to answer the question, why single speed? Another question was, what do I carry during a race, or what should you carry during a race? And that varies, depends on person, bike, type of racing. But anyway, I'm going to discuss that in fairly decent detail as well. Steve Cordes popped in and said, why are there no tech zones allowed? And we've actually discussed this briefly in a previous episode, but I'll touch on that one lightly and provide the reasons why there is no tech zone allowed. in USA Cycling cross country racing. And the last one is race strategy basics. And I don't know, and if we run long, I'll hold the race strategy basics over until next week. That could be a very simple or a very complex thing. So just depends on how you look at it. Yeah. Anyway, we'll see if we get there or not. And as we go through this, toss out your experiences. You know, I may throw out an opinion, but it doesn't necessarily mean that my opinion's right. You guys may have an experience that holds that, you know, a different opinion on a subject, and yeah, throw it out there. I love, you know, thinking outside the box and seeing other ideas. That's, you know, it's important to me. It's important to see other things. So definitely throw out there or ask questions. If you don't understand something I say, throw it, you know, say, hey, what are you talking about? So yeah, let's get to it. Let's do a steed update. Trail's in great shape right now. Maybe a little damp, but probably not too bad. Honestly, we got some good rain this morning. Overcast and chilly and windy the rest of the day. So I'm sure there's a couple little wet sections, but again, there's only like 2 or 3 places that even get muddy, and those are pretty insignificant. Even last year when it rained the whole week before and rained on the race day, like I said, there was only really one major mud section. That was right at the beginning, and it wasn't sticky, so it's not significant. By the time you finished your race, I mean, we raced in active rain, and literally I didn't have any mud build up on my bike after 2 laps last year. So worst case scenario is really not that bad. Slippery rocks is the worst case scenario. That's it. So you're not going to, you're not going to, get mud and break derailleurs and stuff like that. I mean, you may crash and do things, Jay Black, smashing on rocks, stuff like that. But that's another story all to itself. The weather, I've been monitoring it, and it's not really changed significantly, and it's kind of hit or miss. It's small chances of little thunderstorms all throughout next week and into the next week, leading up to the race. Doesn't look like anything big. It's all little things, 5, 10, 20, 30% chance here and there. So could be significant, could be nothing. I mean, it could rain here, and it may not even rain on the trail, which is 30 minutes for me. So you never know. We'll play it by ear. But regardless, even if its conditions are, less than desirable, it's going to be okay. I think we raced in it last year in probably the worst case scenario, rain leading up the week before, and overcast, misty into active rain during the racing. So I don't know that you could get a scenario that was worse. But I don't think that's going to happen this year, just from the forecast. Looks like things could be a little wet, but temperatures are warming up. So I think today's our cold day, and temperatures going to be warming up. Looks like race week and towards weekend, it's going to be in the ballpark of mid 70s to 80s. So not too hot, but warm enough with wind that even with overcast skies, I think the trail will be in good shape. So if anybody gets out there to pre-ride, again, everything is for the adults are marked with stakes that say TDD or prologue. You will need to do the appropriate course. Only the novice will be doing the prologue. So the rest of you are welcome to ride it. I ride the prologue a lot just to warm up real quick. It's a half-mile loop, and then you'll go out and do a full loop. Novices will do a full loop as well. But only the novices will do the additional prologue. So, but it's marked off with stakes that say prologue, TDD. So you can see also marked with white flagging or white ribbon on the right. Just know that we have a lot of hikers and a lot of kids and a lot of people out there. So sometimes markers get moved. And in fact, I got a call from Delilah at the park office or a text I think last night. She said that had some people turn in some white flags. So looks like some people are removing them or taking them up. So I'll be back out there this week to remark just to make sure. But there's a lot of flagging out there. So even with the ones that are removed, I think you probably still are going to be able to navigate quite easily. So that's pretty much it. So unless there's any questions about Steed, we're going to roll on and talk about our viewer topics, our viewer questions. So number one, choosing bikes. So this one really came down. I mean, this can really get more complex than this, but I'm going to try to keep it fairly simple just because there's too much information. Let's keep this between full suspension and hardtail, and then also know that there are brand choices sometimes, and those brand choices can be made based on, I don't know, availability, what your shop sells. Maybe you have some, customer reason that you prefer one versus the other. Some customer support that they've done satisfactory for you. Could be the geometry of the bike, could be the suspension setup. There's all kinds of things that are very individual and between each brand of bike that are very specific. And I'm not going to go into that, but just know that that also applies. I'm going to be much more general, excuse me, and I'm just going to keep it, I guess, directed towards generally hardtail versus full squish. When it comes right down to it, those are your main choices. And I think most people out of the ballpark, if they can afford it, will go with a full suspension bike versus a hardtail. And so, hey, Carolyn, what's happening? Late, but just now here to the good stuff. So here's just my list, and then I'm going to give you my list of different factors that I think factor in when you're deciding whether you're going to purchase a hardtail versus a full suspension. Riding style. Where you ride. Comfort, traction, cost and weight, power to the pedals, control, and then I just say complexity versus simpler. So all of those are, to me, factors and how you explain those factors. So let's just talk about riding style. What kind of rider are you? Are you bombing downhill? Are you going, doing enduro type stuff? Or are you out climbing, doing, long cross country rides, things of that nature? So the style that you have for your, the way you ride your bike. Hey, come on. You're hitting my camera. Matters. You have to move that. It's knocking my camera out of whack. So me, I'm not a big enduro downhill guy, although I will dabble easily and carefully on courses like that. However, that's not my thing. So I don't have the need for to do that kind of stuff, to get a big, huge, full suspension bike, to take up the, the jumps and the bumps and the hits and the speed. That's not my style. It's not what I do. I'm more of a cross country rider. Come on, you got to go over there. No, you got to go. I got business to take care of. And so anyway, so that's what it is. If you're into the other stuff and you need some suspension and things of that nature, then that's what you're going to have to do. Let's go. Let's see. Next one. Where you ride. So that's an important one, obviously. I know I see this a lot in Oklahoma. I'm sorry, I'm clicking a couple of tabs here to check some messages. And I don't know. I still kind of find it funny. A lot of people really talk about, Oklahoma bike choices here in Oklahoma and what they should get and whether they need a full suspension. And I mean, I ride a single speed hardtail everywhere that I go. I mean, that's what I ride. So I don't have any problem on almost any terrain. Now, there's some terrain that a full squish would be nice, but for the most part, I'm okay. And so here in Oklahoma, yeah, there's some comfort things and there's some reasons behind a full squish, but a hardtail is probably going to suffice on most of the type trails we have here. Now, if you're going to go do some long racing, marathon style racing, where comfort is important, or you're going to go to Colorado or Utah or some of the places that have bigger mountains where you're going downhill for a really long time and a hardtail is just going to beat the hell out of you. Well, okay. Yeah, I get it. So where you ride is important. Trails you ride is important. You know, if all you ride is Bluff Creek, you don't need a full suspension bike. You know, I mean, you could get away with a rigid doing that. Yep, Bo Smith, you're exactly right. And that's something that is coming up. I mean, 100%. So Forrest Smith says he prefers full suspension. Keeping the tire stuck to the ground works better for him. Just being able to remain seated and pedaling is more efficient. And that's correct. And that's a discussion that I actually have with a lot of people when I discuss the hardtail single speed disadvantage that a lot of people think I have because I have one gear. In actuality, for me, having one gear is not as big of an issue or big as a deficiency as not having, dude, you got to go away, as not having suspension. So I find that if I'm racing against guys on my mountain bike, my biggest difference maker is not the one gear, it's the not having a suspension when they have a suspension bike. And it's for those very reasons that Forrest just said. Come on, you got to go in there. And that is because you have more traction with a full suspension because the rubber stays on the ground because you're not bouncing. You're able to carve corners a little bit better because you get compression into the corners and you're able to hold the corners a little better. And you're able to stay seated and power through things where I have to stand up to mash, and those things are all problems. So Kevin Snyder's in the house. What's happening to Kevin? And Jason Hennessy says, unless you know how to pump the bike, and it depends on where you're at. But I did actually learn that from a couple of guys. Started with Chris Drummond, kind of showed me the basics many, many years ago. Brandon Malot's talked to me about it. And then I've worked with a few other motocross guys that this comes naturally to. So yeah, pumping the bike is important, but that's just a riding style, and that's a riding technique that you can use regardless of what kind of bike you have. Full suspension, hardtail, rigid. If you know the understanding of what's called, as Brandon Malott calls it, free speed, it works. Doesn't matter what bike you have. So we kind of covered comfort and traction there. So comfort is another one too. Smooth trail, not a lot of bumps. Hardtail's probably going to be fine. Comfort's not going to be an issue. But if you're riding bumpy trails, you're going for long periods of time where comfort's important. You're riding trails where you're going downhill long periods of time when you need upper body help, then full suspension is going to be a way to go. So, cost and weight. I kind of factor those together. I don't know. They're really different, cost and weight. I don't know. I just put them on the same line. They're different things, but cost, you're going to spend more on a full squish than you are a hardtail. Less components, less things to have. So probably not significant. Depends on the level of bike you get. But again, a factor. Weight, same thing. Full suspension has more stuff. Probably going to be heavier. Yes, there are some super, super light full suspension bikes, but if you got the same quality components on a hardtail, it would be like a feather. So, again, that's a general rule of thumb. Power to the pedals. Still across the board, if you're on a smooth surface where you can just like nail it and crank it and hit the gas. If you have a hardtail, you're going to have no bob, no squish, no suspension give. So everything that you pedal is going straight to the wheel, straight to the drive chain. so you're going to get more power. How significant that is and whether that makes up for the loss and other things, that just depends on all these other things we've talked about. So, but just know that that is a factor. Control, bike control. Without a doubt, full suspension bikes are going to give you more control. They're going to give you more room for error. They're going to give you, they're going to allow for mistakes because the suspension can cover some of those things. Whereas with a hardtail, you're going to feel everything. You're going to get bumped and moved and bounced, and you're going to feel every little thing. And sometimes that's good. And if you can adjust to that, which I have, that doesn't really bother me too bad. I'm kind of used to it. It's okay, but just know that that's going to happen. And that goes to what Forrest was saying, where he can stay seated and keep pedaling and maintain his momentum and more efficient. And that's correct. You'll see that, especially if you have some like choppy rock gardens. I can be right with someone that has a full suspension bike, and my speed will just come to a crawl and they'll keep going. They'll do just what Forrest said. They'll stay seated, keep pedaling, smash through the thing. I'll have to stand up, take all the hits, and then power out of it to get my speed back up because of all the hits slow me down. And that will, cost me time. So it'll cost me 2 bike links or a bike length, which doesn't seem significant, but if you have to do that 20 times a lap, it's important. So I don't know, just know that that's a factor. I don't know. I think that pretty much covers it. I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but I think those are all the basics. And I mean, it comes down to just where you ride, what you prefer, your riding style, how much you're willing to spend, how much of a bike do you really need? So all those things. So yeah. And let me get back here, peek over a little bit on another tab. Okay, so that led into a second question that was kind of part of this one, and that was why single speed. And so I have some personal answers on why single speed, but then I actually have some legitimate, some real answers that I feel apply. So let me go ahead and switch my page. So I have to admit, the first one for me is that I race single speed just because I tried it out. I'm not even sure. 6 years ago, 7 years ago, something like that. I'm not even sure. And I just loved it. I love the idea behind it. I love the simplicity. It fits my lifestyle. It's part of what makes the Wizard because it kind of fits my whole personality. And from an ego standpoint, that's important to me, and I understand that. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it is what it is. And I also like the fact that it's hard, that it's not easy, and that a lot of people can't do it or don't think they can do it. They probably could if they chose to. They're willing to commit to it, and I use one of the guys I follow. If you guys ever followed David Goggins, who's a crazy dude, and it's like his motto, stay hard. And that's kind of my whole mantra. It's like, stay hard. Maybe old and not the but I'm not riding all the cool bells and whistles, but I can still do it, and I'm doing it on a single speed hardtail. So if I can do it, anybody can. So that's part of my reasoning. Now, one thing I will say is there are some, those are more personal reasons, and those more personal reasons don't necessarily reflect what you guys want, but I recommend riding a single speed, even if it's in the off season, even if you can turn a beater into a single speed, just to ride it during gap weeks or off season or in between things when you have time. And the reason I recommend that is because I think it does several things. First of all, I think it works on your overall technique, and there's a lot to that technique. And I'm getting some messages. Sorry, I had to go over and look at those. I've got a few. And so that technique really kind of falls into a variety of things. One thing that I found that really benefited me, and I kind of learned this way back in the day when I first started riding a trainer, probably 10 years ago. I started working on my pedal cadence, not necessarily my cadence, but my pedaling, how I pedaled, how efficiently I pedaled. I paid attention to my ankle angle, my, did I toe point? Was I, my ankle bent up, in, out, my knee position, how I introduced my hips into the pedaling motion versus just pedaling with my quads. Do I pull up? That's not the strongest muscle, but that is part of the motion. So I don't necessarily know that it's a strength thing, but it helps with the pedal motion. So I think that riding single speed just completed that for me. And it's like, I have to pedal a lot. When you ride a single speed, pedaling is very critical. Much more critical than when you have gears and you can shift and get into the perfect cadence. So I think I think that's one thing it helps. It works on a really efficient pedal stroke, which is important, regardless of whether you have gears or not. Cornering, handling, and that leads into momentum. So one of the things that I'm always working on, because I know that it's one of my weaker spots, and that is cornering in the tight areas, bike handling, and carrying momentum out of corners and through sections and all of that. So a lot of times if you have gears and you go into a corner, and you can go into it and be less efficient, but if you're able to click and go down a little bit lower and then pedal out of it much easier and then click up and gain your speed back, you can not be as efficient, but still be pretty fast through the corner. Where with me having one gear, or if you're riding your single speed having one gear and you screw up on a corner, the effort that you have to use to get your bike back up to speed because you didn't carry the corner or make the turn or make the section cleanly, it's a lot of energy. And if you're in a race or a longer event, and if you have to do that 100 times, even though it's a very small amount, it builds up and it becomes a big problem. Whereas someone with gears, if they're shifting and using their gears to get through that, then they don't do that. So that's the thing that it teaches you to do. You have to read the course. You have to read the terrain a lot better. You have to handle it. You have to use your momentum as well as you can in order to take advantage of every little bit, because it all matters. And so even if you are a geared rider by heart, if you could take the time to train a little bit in the off season on a single speed, it will help you develop those skills, I think, by force, because you're going to realize you're going to feel the deficit much more. And then another thing that I talk about a lot too, and I really don't know how much. I don't have any science behind this. This is just personal feeling, personal experience. I have a lot of that, but I've not really tested it, but I think that it applies. So the one thing that I notice is that with almost everybody that rides gears, what kind of cadence do you ride? How much power are you putting down? And all that varies based on what you're comfortable with. So maybe you love 80 RPMs and whatever power that presents. Or maybe you like spin a little bit more and you like going 90, or maybe you even spin a whole bunch and you're like a 95 spinner. You could even really love, 75. You could be a masher and you love to go like, 70, 75 RPMs cadence. Well, that's all personal preference. But it doesn't really matter, because the whole point is whatever that personal preference is, that's what you're going to ride. You're going to shift every time up or down to put yourself in that cadence, in that gear, in that comfort zone. And you're rarely going to get out of it unless you just absolutely have to because some extreme terrain. But it's going to be minimal. Whereas on the other hand, with a single speed, you are going to be in all ranges of cadence, super, super high. I mean, there'll be times when I'm doing some sections at 100 to 115 RPMs cadence for multiple minutes at a time. Usually can't maintain that high of a cadence for very long, more than a few minutes, a couple minutes usually. And then I have to dial it back, and then I can pick it back up, but I have to go back and forth. I can climb some gnarly climb, like tabletop at Thunderbird at like 25 cadence, barely turning it over. Huffy at like 40 cadence. Most people with gears, if they hit 40 cadence, they're going to shift like 3 times. There's no way they're going to stand up and be able to mash through that. So by riding a single speed, again, in the off season, I think that it forces you to ride super, super high RPM cadence, super, super low, uncomfortable cadence. And so what happens is that you force yourself to ride in uncomfortable spaces that you're not used to. And it trains those systems in your body. So you can pedal really, really fast. Like if you've got a power up sprint, or maybe you've got to just mash some really gnarly hard climb. So then when you go back to your gears, you know that you're going to still shift and be in your comfort zone. But worst case scenario, you miss a shift, or maybe you're in a sprint all of a sudden that you didn't expect and you're not quite geared right. Now you know that you miss a gear, you're okay. You know you can make it happen still. So it just opens up. It broadens your ability to pedal and pedal different cadence. So. Faux Smith says, the cadence thing, 85 to 90 RPM or die. Yeah, I know. That's, that's my comfort zone too. When I'm on the trainer, that's my sweet spot. But, when I'm doing gravel on my single speed, or I'm doing mountain on my bike on my single speed, like I'm in that cadence, like 10% of the race, maybe. And the rest of the time I'm up way above or way below. So, all right, let's see if I have anything else here. And another thing, single speed, lower maintenance. So less parts, less drivetrain, less things to break. Stuff still breaks, but there's less there. And it's cheaper because there's less stuff. So, all right, cool. I think we're ready for the next topic. All righty, let's get back to here. If there's any questions or comments, be sure and throw them out here. I'm going through a lot, and I'm hoping it all makes sense. And you can call me out and call me crazy or whatever. I'm fine with it. All right, so I'm going to go to the next one. So I think we're at 33. I'm going to cover this next topic and then maybe one short one. Since we're at 33, I may just cover this next one. Hey, quit growling. Got kids walking in the yard. So because I think we're doing pretty good at like going like the 45-ish time frame. Anytime we get over an hour, I think we just kind of lose our focus and momentum. So. Forrest Smith, you single speed guys hurt my knees just watching. No smashing rear derailers. You're right, Jason Hennessy. That is correct. So that's it's funny. Like I've been pre-riding a lot at Steed, and I take people out there, and I'm like, okay, this is the line. You just got to crease this, and I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah, sorry, you guys have a derailleur. You probably don't want to do that. It's going to rip it right off. So you are right. Yeah, true enough. And Forrest, what's funny? I have a bad knee. Like I've got 3 surgeries in my right knee. Had a really major one last, 2 years ago. But what's weird is I don't have any knee issues with my single speed. I don't know. I don't know why. I know it should hurt, but it doesn't. All righty, next topic. And this is one that's going to vary from rider to rider. I'm going to give you my setup and my basics, and then I'm going to talk about some alternatives, and just some different ideas, but it's just a good idea. And again, this is going to vary from every single person to every single person. But I'm going to focus this. The question is, what do I carry tool-wise or in my pockets for a race? Okay, so I'm going to say, first of all, that the stuff that I need to repair my bike or fix my bike or eat or drink, I'm going to go ahead and say eat or drink generally. Nutrition, hydration is an important part of this as well too. I'm not going to discuss that today because that's a topic upon itself. One I've covered before and one I probably need to bring back and address again, just because I like to repeat topics because we have new listeners and just, you know, and there's new information and new products and stuff, but I'm not going to cover nutrition and hydration. I'm going to cover just the repair stuff and fixing my bike and, you know, when I go into a race, what do I put in my pockets? If I have a backpack, what do I put in my backpack and things of that nature? So first thing, I don't wear a backpack in a cross-country race. Second thing I want to emphasize is that I'm going to tell you what I do for cross-country racing. It is very different on what you do versus what you take. Cross-country, cyclocross, short track, marathon racing, gravel racing. All of those things are very different, and what you need to take on those are very different. Now, some of the core components are the same, absolutely, and most of those core components are what I'm going to have today. I will just have additional ones on top of that. So to hit this one up, I am going to pour my Natty Daddy for those of you. This is an 8% Natter Day. It's kind of crazy. Picked it up at my local Walmart. Okay, so, getting spillage here. I was in a hurry for silence and I got a bad pour. That's my bad. We'll let that bad boy sit there. Okay. What do I carry? Cross-country race. I'm lining up at a Tour de Dirt race. What do I have in my pockets? So I'm very precise because I've practiced this, and I know I'm right-handed. First of all, that matters. I know what hand I need to grab stuff with. I know what pockets that if I'm grabbing stuff out of odd pockets for an emergency, it doesn't really need to be easily accessible by my right hand. So I do all of my nutrition in my right pocket in my jersey. I do not wear a backpack. I used to. I do not wear a backpack for cross-country racing. Now, I will on my mountain bike if I'm out exploring or doing some bigger things where I need more gear and I need more stuff to be safe. I need more food. But in a cross-country race, nothing, no backpack. Nutrition, SIS, and shot blocks in my right pocket. I carry this dude right here in my middle pocket. And then I rarely do anything in my left pocket. I will put my trash, like if I'm eating stuff, I will put my trash in my left pocket. So I can actually get trash in my pocket with my left hand pretty easily. So this is pretty much what I carry. I have a seat bag on my bike where I carry one tube. Again, just in a cross-country race, because this is just it's a race. I'm going to be out there an hour and a half, 2 hours, maybe a little longer. If one tube's not sufficient, then I'm just done DNF. So, but what I do is I carry this little guy right here, this nice handy dandy little packet. It's got all kinds of compartments. My girlfriend Amy gave this to me, and it just folds out, and I carry basically CO2 cartridges. So here is, I just have a little, here's a little screw on, CO2 just screws on. I use threaded. They're a little more expensive, but because they're threaded, I don't have to have a body over this that like screws it up in here. So that's just saving weight and space. and then you just press it on, and that's probably dead, but yeah, I probably should just like get rid of it because it's not going to do any good. But you just screw it on, and then I have replacements. I carry 3 or 4 of these in here as well too, just for inflating tires. So if I take a hit, I can use that. I like a good, you have to have a really, really solid, good tire tool that's not going to break. This is just an old Pedro's. I've had this for years, and these are tougher than nails, not like the cheap ones that you break all the time. And I keep this in here. I also keep some Allens. Now, some people will carry a multi-tool, and that's fine too. It's all preference. I use these, they're just called, what are they called? I can't see them. Something sticks, whatever they're called. So I just have like different Allens on each end. They fit into each other, so you can use them as a wedge, so you can use them to, so they fit here and different ways, and you've got all the different things here. So just these 4, that covers almost everything that I need on my bike. Fix-It sticks, thank you. If I wasn't blind, I didn't have my, didn't want to put my glasses on, I could actually read it. So I do have a multi-tool. In a cross-country race, I just typically don't carry it because I don't need everything, and these are just simpler and much easier to get and use. And then lastly, and probably one of the more important things in my kit, and honestly, I don't ever leave home without it. This is one of my favorite ones. There's a variety of them. So this is a plug kit. So this is a really cool one because it's all encased in this little handy dandy deal here. You take the lid off, and this is the holder. So this holds the bacon strip. All the bacon strips are wrapped up in here. So you just pull these bacon strips off. These are just like plugs you put in a regular tire, like for your car. So these are smaller. So this just has a little forked prong right here on it. You put the bacon strip in here. You jam it in like a sidewall cut or a hole. As long as it's not too big, you get about halfway in. So there's a part of the bacon strip on the inside, part on the outside, and then you just pop this out. It stays in there, and your sealant seals it. And it's good to go. I've used this multiple times, and it's pretty good stuff. So definitely have a plug kit, even if it's not as fancy as this. I just like this because it's all encased and it's not loose. It's all in one space, so I know where it's at. And honestly, that's really it. That's all I carry. I don't carry a chain breaker, chain tools, anything of that nature. In a cross-country race, and simply because if I have to fix something of that nature, I'm not good enough to fix it quickly enough to be competitive. So I'm out. Okay, so I now will go further. That's all I carry. That's it. I mean, a tube in my, I carry, like I said, I carry a tube in my seat bag because I don't want to carry that on my body. So that's the only thing I carry in my seat bag, just a tube. And I try to wrap it up and protect it so that it doesn't rub holes in it. I pull it out periodically and check it to make sure it will inflate, because what I find, and I've done this, you carry a tube in your seat bag long enough, there's going to be some rubbing, and there's going to be a hole. And you're going to go put that thing in, and it's got a hole in the tube, and it doesn't do you any good. So it's important. They're cheap, replace them, stick a new one in there, test it, whatever you need to do. Okay, so now I will emphasize that if I do other things, I add additional items. And I'm just going to give you some additional items. And so like I'm talking, if I'm doing a marathon, if I'm doing a longer gravel race where it's 50, 75, 100 miles or more, I'm going out doing an adventure race. I'm going to go ride the Womble. I know I'm going to be out there for like 4 hours in the middle of some trail in Arkansas. I'm going to do the Wichita Challenge, 60-mile race. Usually it's 62 or 63. It's never 60, even though they listed it that. I carry more because the terrain is, you're out there longer, the terrain is harder, the chances of you breaking something are more. So usually I add a tube, an additional tube. I carry at least two. often in those longer events, gravel, sometimes anything really long, anything more than, shoot, let's say 3.5, 4, 5 hours. If you're doing an endurance race at 6 hours, a lot of times I'll carry a backpack just because it's easier to get extra tubes and stuff like that in there. Plus, you're going to need more nutrition too. But the things that I add, like I said, a tube, I will add a chain breaker. I normally don't carry one in a cross-country race, but if I'm doing something out, longer that you have time to actually fix a chain problem, I will carry a chain breaker, quick links that are made specifically for my chain, which are different than probably what you use because your chain is different because you have gears and I don't. I carry small links of chain that come from the chain when I cut it down. So like I actually have links of chain from the actual chain that's on my bike when I got it and cut it down. I keep those in a little bitty zip and I keep those in my backpack. And that way, in case I have something catastrophic, then I can at least limp my way home. Better than walking if you're out in the middle of a forest, in nowhere. So, and a patch kit. I don't often carry one. I rarely have ever used a patch kit, but I carry one. I have a little metal case that carries one just in case. Again, when I'm, it would be a real emergency when I would need it. And I also carry my phone. So now I do not carry my phone cross-country race, short track race, CX race. And so now let's back up and let's even go backwards. So I'm talking longer races and the things that I would carry additionally. Let's go backwards and let's talk about if I'm doing a cyclocross race, 35, 40 minutes, depending on what category you race. Same with a short track race, 35, 40, 45 minutes. I don't carry anything. It's my bike and my water. What's on my bike? I don't put anything in my pocket. So I figure, that race is so fast that, if you have an issue, you're not going to get back in it. And those are not series races, so finishing the race isn't going to be significant. So Daniel Lemon says, I never carry anything for repairs during the race. I guess I like to take unnecessary risk. Yeah, Daniel, you'll be surprised how something as simple as just carrying a CO2. You burp a tire. Don't really, hurt it that much, but you burp a tire. Or maybe you puncture a small hole in it that you don't even need to plug, but your sealant will work, but your tire pressure is so low that you're going to damage your tire. Hit it with some CO2, you get a little air in there, and then if your sealant works, then you're good to go. So, again, just a matter of if you think it's worth it. So, I usually for cross country, I take the bare minimum because I want to be able to do something. I know that I have time to put some air in a tire with a CO2 and get some sealant going. And if it seals, I know that I can get back and at least, maybe still vie for the podium or at least be in the hunt. If you have something really catastrophic, if I break a chain, that's, it's game over for me. So that's why I don't bother fixing that. Technically I could probably even change a tube if the race is long enough and still be in it. But again, it just depends on how long the race is. If it's a shorter race, I won't have time. So, but I carry that just in case because it's not that heavy. I'm carrying CO2 anyway. All I need to change a tube is one tube in a seat bag that doesn't weigh anything and one tire lever. So why not? All right, we're at 49 minutes. So I'm going to, if there's any questions or comments or things that you want me to discuss or recover, I will take those. I'm not going to cover any more subjects. Got crazy dog running in here. Oh man, I thought my camera was fixing to be gone. Hey, go over there. You're going to knock my camera over. Crazy thing. So, no, I don't want to play. So yeah, so questions, comments, any last minute things. We're at 49. I'm going to hold off on why there are no tech zones in XC via Steve Cordis. And I am also going to hold off on race strategy for next week as well too. So I'll make those the two key topics, and that way we'll keep it pretty short. And yeah, and then we'll talk more about Steed, and because I'll have pre-rides in next weekend as well too. So let me go back up, make sure I haven't missed anything. Quit. Turkey. Jason Hennessy, that's a good one. Yeah. So Jason Hennessy, I don't have a dropper post. I have not gone there yet. I'm sorry, but this is pretty funny. Crazy Dog's hyper. It's been raining, so he's been inside all day. Jason, the dropper post. I'm telling you, man, not something that I really need, especially for what I do. But there are a couple of courses that it would be beneficial. And there's not one person that I've ever talked to that has implemented a dropper post that has not absolutely loved them. So the dropper post allows you to do more technical trails, especially drops, downhills, just like tricky drop areas, and do so without the seat getting in the way. So you don't have to worry about trying to get behind the seat to get, really low, which anytime you try to do that, that's messy because it throws your balance off. So, shh. So with the dropper post, you can just pop it, sit, you pop the lever, sit. Jared, come get the dog, please. Stop. You guys are like getting live show with Crazy Dog. But you're above the seat. You don't have to get behind it. It just goes down. So then you're in a perfect balance position and you're doing a drop and the seat's out of the way. So it makes going downhill so much easier, so much safer, and a huge amount of control. Now, again, I don't do it mostly because I'm just fucking hard-headed. I mean, I really have no reason not to. I'm just hard-headed. It's probably one of the reasons I ride a single speed and a hardtail. I'm just hard-headed. I'm old school. One of these days I'm going to do it. I will. Because there's really not a lot of downside to it except the weight. And so, yeah. Yeah. Forrest Smith says, dropper posts are totally worth the extra weight. Never thought I'd use one until I tried it. I know I would. And honestly, from what I've seen, the extra weight's not that significant these days. They're still pretty solid. And if you watch the pro cross country guys, UCI, if there's a hard course, I guarantee 50% of those guys and girls have dropper posts. So it's a thing. It's real. Save me some collarbones, no doubt. Jerry Combs says, same with me, old school. I'm a hardtail, so any advantage for it? Jason, I still think so. I'm a hardtail as well, too. And I still think that a dropper post would be significant because it's not about the squish. It's not about the suspension. It's about getting the seat down and out of the way when you're going down, a drop or like a little sketchy rock drop. Like you have a little, you have a ledge where you're dropping off a foot. Or you have a downhill that's like 10, 12 feet and you're trying to navigate it. It's getting that seat down and out of the way so that you can get up and balanced without the seat hitting you in the ass and wanting to knock you over the bars. So I do. I think that I really think that it probably would still be a benefit, even a very significant one for someone riding a hardtail. Yeah. Even though I'm hard-headed and don't do it myself. I don't know. Maybe I will. Maybe someone will talk me into it and I'll just try it for shits and giggles just to see. But I have to admit, I really don't like going down. I'm kind of a pussy. So so I don't really know that I need the hardtail. I will do some crazy stuff at Steed. just because it's my own course and I know exactly where it's at. But I'm such a wuss when it comes to some of the drops in the other places that I don't know that a dropper would matter to me because I'm too scared to start with. It's good for flat corners, huh? BMX turns, interesting. So see, that's a whole new thing for us. It's like that's a whole new world for me. It's like learning how to flat corner BMX style those things. Cornering's always been my just devil's advocate. It just gets me. All right, 55 minutes. Good questions, good conversation, good topics. I'm going to finish my beer, reach out to a few people that messaged me, and we're going to be back here next week with 2 more viewer comments that I didn't get to today, another Steed update, and anything else that comes up. I actually do think we're going to have some other stuff coming up regarding a bike club and a local Oklahoma City trail. I don't want to throw anything out there inappropriately yet, but I have a meeting tomorrow night with a cool crew of folks, and we've got some things brewing, and I think these things are going to lead into not just kids and bike club, but into a possible Tour de Dirt thing next year. So anyway, totally leaving you hanging with like a little, vague innuendo there, but I'll hopefully we'll have enough information that I'll be able to give you the 411 next Tuesday with the official stamp on it. So, all righty, ladies and gents, I'm out. Weekly Wizard update one more time. Thank you for listening. Thanks for listening to me gab about bikes and random stuff, and look forward to seeing you next week or before then. So out later.